Okay, I will call to order this special meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees for the purposes of continuing our work on the 2024-2025 village budget. We will hopefully be finishing up general this evening and then moving on to water. And so with respect to the general budget, there were a couple of changes that I had Jessica make with respect to the percentage of salary allocation for the DPW supervisor. Having some more or moving back some of his salary to water, which had been shifted to general from water based on his current work breakdown. We're actually going to phase that in over 2 years. So we've moved back half of what his actual workload would reflect into general, and we'll make a note to move the remaining half next budget cycle. With that change and the follow-on changes to payroll tax and state retirement, we're very close to being able to keep the tax rate flat again. Whether or not that's a good idea is up for this board to decide, but it can be done. I'm just going through my sheet. There were a couple of items I wanted us to circle back to, and then if there's anything else that anyone else wants to address or discuss, we certainly can. Just removing my highlights on a couple of things. Just A 1640.43 liability and building insurance. You had said that's what was combined into the larger number above. Okay. We all saw the email from Tom regarding the building and code software. Any questions or thoughts on yay or nay as far as that goes? It remains in this draft budget.
I mean, I think I don't know a huge amount about it, honestly, but the part that to me is fairly compelling is the idea of transitioning. Sure. I don't know a huge amount about it, but I think the piece that's compelling is the idea of that being something that helps us transition when Tom does eventually leave, that you would have enough time to get those systems in place in a way that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
To, whoever comes next.
Dolores, we're talking about a piece of software for the building and code enforcement office to transition away from Microsoft Word and Excel spreadsheets for all things code and any other thoughts on?
No, I mean, my suspicion is this is kind of what we need to be doing to keep up with moving through into the 22nd, first century, whatever we're in.
Because chances are anybody that we get that comes in after Tom is going to have worked with some sort of software regarding code enforcement. I would imagine.
Yeah, I would imagine too. And I like the fact that it has GIS capabilities as well.
Yeah.
We can do more to have our own zoning maps in-house versus having the county be the kind of owning of them. So it's not terrible to have it through the county. It'd be nice to have it in-house, have those capabilities.
Any other thoughts or any objections, I guess would be a better way of.
No, not for me.
Let's see. Right, but the chipsets money in, money out on both sides, right?
Yeah. I made a couple, well, there's two smaller suggestions. Maybe got moved in. I can double check. And then the building reserve we can talk about too. I'm happy to jump in whenever you want.
Building reserve line number.
A234 reserve.
Oh, reserves. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's hold
I can hold on
a
to
couple
that.
other lines.
I may not see.
Do you have any other thoughts on ambulance legal? We have it at 15.
shot in the dark. It
This
feels
is
like,
like, just start June one.
I mean, that's kind of what makes it a shot in the dark. If it was starting today, I know that would make it. No, I think 15 is, I don't-
Decent.
yeah,
As good a shot in the dark as any.
Yeah.
Any additional thoughts then on library, historical society, or the food pantry we currently have in there? Is
Did you talk to Guy?
I haven't talked to Guy. Well, I'll revisit that.
Because I did talk to the food pantry and the food pantry said, we totally understand if you cannot do contractual funds for us because how it used to be set up is there was a residency requirement, but they felt that that would be too much of a food boundary for people who really need it. So if it is true that contractual funding falls under direct in-kind services to the village, they would not qualify.
they don't have,
Why don't,
they don't have way to track.
well, no, you said they collect addresses. That's fine.
No, they serve, they
said-
not only serve the village, they serve several counties surrounding us. So,
I don't think that's prohibitive, right? I mean, the library is serving people from every municipality in the
Right.
county, right?
so
Our
that's the
county
question,
is-
but so that's the
diverse.
question.
It's a question of how we navigate the contract piece. I don't think the providers like our youth services provide services to people from Porter County, right? Like,
Right, but that is in conjunction with the town, correct? Which also services 3 other counties.
right, but I guess what I'm saying is a public good doesn't have to be exclusive to village residents. That feels,
And I totally agree with you, but all I know is the way that I read the law. And if that's the law, I think we should follow it.
well, I still need to talk to the guy. So I'll add that to my list. And I think
Okay.
I'd like to circle back. to
I mean, if you think that's the way that the contracts are written and we can write them that way, then
It's not in-kind service to village residents.
I
It's
worded
an-
that correct.
it's an In-kind service for services which the village won't render for one reason or another.
okay, gotcha.
And it's the specific measurable part that, for instance, a lot of not-for-profits may do good things, but they just don't qualify.
Right.
Um,
That's the question.
Sure.
So of the organizations that you might be considering to offer funding of one type or another. Is the library included in that?
Yes,
And can you tell me how much you consider?
5,000, 5,000, same as previous years.
I don't bring it up in the library. And I'm not sure that it's too small. But I mean, it offers many different kinds of services for the whole community. And when we had the electric power back in January 10th, somewhere in 10. Many people went to the library looking for a lot of here in
Yes.
and Wi-Fi and telephone cell service and it was a very easy day in the library to find those services because they have this. So I think done all the different kinds of things like that, and also being that they also have tax, free tax services.
Yeah.
And things like that.
And we don't ever want you to think that as we have these financial discussions, that we are undervaluing what the library does for this community. It's an overwhelmingly wonderful. I mean, I had a friend that was a librarian down in Rockland County. And they didn't, their population is way more than ours. And we have a library that is second to none to that, to theirs, but,
So there's, yeah, we are funding the library in this year's budget, Dolores.
Yeah.
And no one's questioning what how
Right.
good they do, but there is an open it's not an open question. The strictest and most correct interpretation of municipal law and the state constitution effectively prohibit municipalities from giving money to any not-for-profit for almost any reason. And it's our village attorney's position that pretty much every municipality is doing it wrong. And he can cite chapter and verse to prove it. Now, that begs the question, okay, if everybody's doing it wrong, does that mean we should too? You know, if everybody's driving 80 and a 65, then we all go 80, right? And we've kind of taken this budget season, we've kind of taken the approach of, well, let's get a little bit closer to the letter of the law, maybe. And certainly the library actually does sneak into that very narrow definition. And we've had some conversations about what other organizations maybe can or can't sneak into that narrow definition. So, so we're maintaining 5,000 for the library, 500 for the historical society.
are we gonna maintain the 1,500 for the food pantry then?
I would appreciate tabling this discussion for the moment and circling back until I've been able to talk with Guy, because that's just able to do that, yeah.
Okay,
As much as I love having it repeatedly.
I
you
know,
it's
I
like,
know, I know.
That's great, but it's easy enough.
I'm sorry, I know it's an annoying thing to
It's
bring
not,
up. I just
you know,
want to make
You
sure
may
we're
have a hard
doing it
time
right.
getting to him this week,
Oh, yeah.
but try, because I don't want to leave this lingering past next week when we have, I'd like to get everything buttoned up so we can notice the public hearing on the budget for our April meeting and have the draft available. So we'll leave them in for now, unless something convinces us that the food pantry has to come out. Which brings us to, yes, the reserve lines. Ben.
Yeah, so I've got actually two now that I'm looking at this. The first, let me find it, is maybe we'll start with the building, DPW building reserve to A230A.
Mhm.
So we had, I think at one point. Now, this is different than I remember it being. I remember us having like 60 something thousand and 68,000 in here. Maybe that's unimportant. I remember us having a conversation. Oh, I'm getting DPW building and maybe
So I think the
other
note,
building
I think that-
confused.
so you wanted to do the DPW building, which is 230A. Balance
Is-
there is 47.
Is there a village building?
Yeah.
That's, sorry, A234 is the one we're talking about.
I think.
So we had a conversation about this being 68,000. We didn't really think there was much we wanted to do for this building. Is that fine? Dusty is actively trying to get quotes for a new roof for this building. That doesn't mean it has to happen immediately, but it's also likely to be more than that 68,000. So that is one thing for us to consider if and how we want to consider that. And I don't have much more information on the need one way or another, or the urgency of the need, I should say. But I do seem to recall that the roof is not in great condition, but I don't know much more than that. Which I realize makes this conversation a bit more tricky.
Well, we can add 20. Gonna make it 88.
Yeah, I think that would probably help to get there. And if we have to get creative,
For a new roof. Is it really in that ballpark?
so I tried to push Dusty on like more of a better number and he wasn't able to give me a straight answer, but it was more than 68 for it was his
Jeez.
opinion.
Extreme.
I am-
40 to 45 is probably close.
Yeah. I heard.
Yeah.
I am not,
I've been shocked before, don't get me wrong, but.
I don't have a good sense either which way. We could ride with that and hope that it's enough or figure out how to.
I mean, it does feel like a good line to at least have some kind of minimum contribution.
Right, we didn't put any in last year, so I think we could put it in 20 this year.
And then the other thing while we're looking at, I see A 230, I just happened to notice this. We had planned on 40,000 ongoing in the reserve to deal with our truck needs. I see it got bumped to 5 at some point, so wasn't quite sure where.
That was part of your, unless I misunderstood.
Oh, I think I miss,
I don't know.
unless I put the wrong number there. So I think I said that, yeah, so, yes, yep. So it should be the one below.
The buildings should be.
Building reserve should be 5. So the idea here was to drop that, that one above should be 40. Yeah, so A 230 should be 40. That's what it was previously. And that's our budgeted or like our planned out reserve. The A 230A, when in talking with Dusty, and I knew we were trying to find some more space in the budget, we dropped that down to 5 instead of 15, with the idea that rather than reserving more, we're just going to use it in this current budget. So we have lines above where we're going to use these overhead doors. So that was trying to actually save us around 10K in the budget, but that does put the reserve back where it was supposed to be, which is quite a bit higher, I understand.
Yeah, can we bring the building back down?
Yeah, and so maybe we need to think of this as at the same time. Maybe this year isn't the year for the roof. I don't know.
We're going the wrong way on this numbers.
Mhm.
Well, let's do village building reserve at 10. I don't like the 0 to reserves.
Yeah, that's better. I like it.
If we need to do the DPW building down to 0 even, I think Dusty was open to that. He wasn't thrilled by the idea. But we are going to be doing more. I think there's like the balance is we put more in the actual line this year to go do the overhead doors instead of taking out of reserve, but we can be flexible with how that money works out, right? We could even say we don't put extra and we take that out of reserves, that extra 4,000, for instance, and that could instead come out of reserves. Sure.
There's an excuse to have the, screw that chicken.
Okey dokey. That old excuse.
Then you can change this.
Yes. Stop the share then.
We put ourselves past a flat rate, I think. Yes. That's my calculation.
Let's see. Well, if we are gonna bump rates, as I think we're we're gonna have to bump rates a bit. How do we feel about going back to last year's number for the village board pay?
That's fine,
Mhm.
fine with me.
I was gonna say, Keith, you have a strong opinion.
We can leave that low 5
Yeah.
is what I'd suggested. And then we could. I'd be up for leaving I think I'd be up for leaving the central garage building repairs a 1640 20.21 at 10, and we could just take the extra 4 out of reserves. When we get there. And we're kind of moving money around. Do we just put it in a line or do we take it out of reserves?
Okay, so we'll take central garage building repairs back down to 10.
Since I'm,
What line was that?
that
I was
is,
trying to keep up here.
yeah, a 1640.21, well, line 79 on the spreadsheet. And then, because I'm supposed to keep up for Jessica, what's the building, the top, right, line 51 and 50.
15 and 7,500. Yeah.
Nope, not 70, so 5,000. There we go.
Let's take the A234, let's take the village building reserve down to 5. Just to start recontributing. That'll get us over 70,000 in that account. If the quotes for a roof come in at 70, we need better quotes.
All right.
Yeah, we do.
Like a lot better.
All right, and just to double check my numbers, I've got A230 at 40,000 and the next line A230A at 5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a conflicted version. It's never a good way to deal with this. Next year, it's all in SharePoint. We agree.
I'm also somewhat terrified of that. We'll have to save some
Yeah, there's probably, I guess,
version,
different problems.
better problems than. Keep doing it.
One other thing I could suggest around engineering. We've got 12.5 for general engineering. Which one is that?
65. Oh, no, that's contractual.
Or I guess it's engineering, it's probably engineering contractual, is that?
Yeah, 65.
Yeah, line 65. I don't know that we have much of anything. Well, unless we have new things we're planning on. I did get a sheet from MRB that has all of their in-flight projects and what they expect remaining. And the stuff that would come out of general, I have it less than 5,000, like 4,000 and change.
I think we need to redo the forward grant for DRI or something.
Okay,
That
if we're thinking about one of those, then that number makes a lot more sense.
I think so. I don't know, Rory, have you given that?
I don't think we're gonna do a New York Forward or DRI grant this year.
No.
The
High
down-
aspiration.
the downtown core piece. I mean, they're really looking for blighted revitalization. And we're kind of the opposite of that.
Right, but I think if we do like a municipal coalition where we're working with Interlake and we're sort of framing it in terms of broader regional tourism. I was looking at a grant that the village of Cuba did, it's sort of similar. So it might be less about our downtown and more about Barton and more about, you know what I mean? I feel like we have a lot of pieces in play that could be compelling. Even though our downtown is amazing. And the envy of all other towns.
So I think that's a 2024 or a 2025.
Honestly, it's hard to say. We also maybe could pitch them on a grant administration oriented contract instead of an upfront cost.
Right.
I don't know. And maybe that's optimistic to begin with. I don't know, maybe, I mean, we could knock it down to 8,500 and all that helpful. And if we get to a point where we have something compelling coming through, just run it out of general if it goes over. Plan on 2025, and then if we get to it early or something materializes, I think that's fair. Honestly, it's really just spurred by me seeing that the successful award from Hugo, which was, I think, something we could.
I mean, I'm with you on the idea. Conceptually, I've been keeping an eye on those things and they seem compelling.
And very achievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and worth the investment. So I'm with you on that, but I couldn't say more on when's the right time to pick that up.
Yeah, it's hard to, that's.
Personally, I don't have capacity for it right now, though I keep having an eye on it. If there was, I mean, if there's something that you.
I mean, the
someone else-
complexity of the application really would require a contractor. I don't think it's something that any of us could take on. But it really is the piece, the behind the scenes, like the forming of the coalition, coming up with, outreach, because, those grants are all.
Right.
A lot of them are. Private enterprise, right? Like, how do you, there's a lot of outreach.
Right.
Right, it's outreach heavy. So
Yeah, right,
how much of that is,
I would imagine
Us.
right, MRB probably leading the tactical pieces, the writing, the kind of coalition, the whatnot, but we probably need to do
yeah, that's true.
some building on our side.
But I don't know, you have 5,000
I have, yeah,
like
about
expected.
4,500, 5,000 expected. We should have wiggle room for other things we're not expecting.
Call it 85.
Why don't we make it 10?
Yeah, I
That
think
sounds
I'll
fun.
bring it down to there safely.
How much more do we have to eke out?
118,000.
How was that all?
No, I mean, it is.
So
what
about
it
that
is.
library.
Just kidding, Doors.
Well, I have
I think.
94 overall change from last year. Levy. Oh, no, I don't. Sorry, I have 174. 75 brings us to 7.25.
You can't use it for balance.
75.
We'll be dipping too low.
I thought that was what we talked about at the last meeting. You look back at the numbers.
75 would take us to 12%. Just starting to feel a little low. Now, water will be paying back general over the next few years, but it's not money in the bank yet. No, I think that's about what we can do on the expense side. The question is, what tax rate are we comfortable raising it to? With the anticipation or expectations, as I mentioned Saturday, I did talk to Jay or emailed Jay, and he said he would expect. He would suggest that we use 195 million as the number for next year.
From 175-ish.
From 170, 148 to 195. So, good bump. Which is what? 15-ish% relative to the county's 19-ish. So with the anticipation that we'll see, well, that we know that there'll be a big increase in the assessment number for next year's budget. So we should not have any issue with
Given to,
either reducing it back, if that's what we decide next year, or being able to plan on keeping that, whatever level we move it up to this year, flat for some years to come. I don't like the idea of a big bump this year and then a pullback next year. I don't like that.
No, I don't either.
But if we bump it, what number is palatable to bump this year? Bearing in mind, we've been at 7.25 for 5 years. We say 730, 735, 740. 745, so in nickel increments, where do we feel justified in?
You have that sheet from the State of the Village where I think, or the answer, I guess, the question I'm looking for is what was the bump from last year to
that's
this
what I was
year
gonna
in the
Yeah,
assessments?
it was on there.
156 last year to 170 this year, so 14 million. Just under 14 million. It was an 8% levy bump, or an 8% assessment bump. And it'll be a 14.6 roughly, call it 15% levy bump next year, which we've never seen. Going back to 2010, we've seen 2.5, 0.4, 0.8, 1.1, 0.7. Then there was a 2.4 and 8.9 back in 2017. And then low single digits for a couple of years, then a 7.6 in 2020. Then 0.35, 0.69, then a 7.5, and then the year we're in an 8.6, and then next year looking at a 15.
Wow.
And it's conceivable that's not gonna slow down.
It's conceivable that we will see another double-digit
Yeah.
number in the next year or two.
I mean, my hunch is to kind of keep it as modest as possible and maybe look at dropping it back again. I don't love the idea of. Well, I don't really love the idea of having it higher and then even just knowing that we're looking at 14, 15% in the face. And if we don't want to have it jump kind of around a lot, I'd want to see it just nudge a slight bit to make us through this, with the idea of like kind of making it through to,
Till we get to the next budget year.
and then
There
being
we
able
know
to
more
bring it
money.
down.
What was the comptroller's recommendation again in terms of fund balance?
Between 10 and 20. But I've always felt like 15 is a sweet spot. Well, the 15 is kind of. It's kind of right. 20 and you're actually sitting a little bit, assuming all your reserves is funded. Assuming your reserves are funded, repair lines are funded, you're allocating money where it needs to go. Then 20 is a little bit rich. 10 starts to feel a little bit tight, so it goes sideways. And so the happy medium between those two is 50.
I mean, my feeling is 77,000 gets us to a flat rate. That brings us to, did you say 13%?
77,000. Take us to 12%.
I mean, I'm okay with that. Right, if we're looking at greater flexibility next year in terms of our rates. In addition to having some of our expenditures come back from water.
Keeping the fund balance. a
I
little
mean,
lower.
13, like if we were talking go down to like 5%, you know what I mean? I wouldn't want, I'm not suggesting we scrape the bottom of the barrel for anything. But that feels reasonable to me.
Well, I think I mean, it might make sense to talk a little bit about water too, because my intention is that quite a bit of that's coming back. Maybe even more than that 77. So I don't,
What's more?
right, I'm being cautious here, like. I think the idea currently as it stands in water is that we'd be getting back more than that. So if that. I know there's a risk there because it's not for sure money and it's not maybe money at the start of the budget year. It could be. As we go along the budget year and run that. And run that. Imbalance that we can pay ourselves back from. But I think that makes me a little more comfortable going a little lower on reserves, knowing we have a plan to bring back a decent chunk of that, if not all or more of that in the next year.
Well, with that said, then when we get to next year. If the assessment increase is what it's expected to be. Will we be okay with keeping the tax rate flat then?
Certainly hope so.
Well, I'm saying if it
As
was,
opposed to,
as
Yeah.
opposed to going,
As opposed to going even further back.
be okay with finding places for cash. For future years. As opposed to,
I think, I don't know, it's hard to extrapolate and guess, but I'd be curious to play with what it looks like to go back just a small step back and then also, come back to some of the reserves, like kind of split the difference if there's a possibility there. I don't know what, say, 5 cents on the rate does for our total levy off the top of my head there.
no, I'm saying if we keep it at 725 this year.
Yeah,
And then next year, hypothetically, if nothing changes drastically in the budget other than payroll increases,
right.
and we see the big assessment bump. And that could mean a reduction in the rate to 650.
Right.
Would we keep it at 725 and allocate cash to some of these lines where
I would.
we're scraping together?
I would, I'm just.
Yeah, so I
conservative
guess-
that way.
My thought is, if I had my ideal, it would be maybe phase that in over 2 years or something for people paying taxes, but. Let's see if we can't find some balance in between there. I wouldn't want to keep it this lean, basically. I'd want to get us back to, especially on the reserve lines. Something that feels more comfortable, but then see if we can't back it down to like maybe 7 for a year and then back up to 7.25. I'm totally guessing at numbers here. But if we could go to 650, maybe we can find a space in between that allows us to step into it over a year, 2 or 3 years, and while still not being really.
Yeah, I mean,
really
it looks a
scraggly.
little funky, but I mean, you're basing your budget on what your revenue is and what your, so I mean, if you used it like in your household, the years that you make more money versus less money,
Right.
it's,
Well, I'm less personally concerned about the tax rate
right,
than the levy.
right,
Because
exactly.
the levy is what's gonna happen on people's actual
Taxes,
taxes, right?
yes.
um,
I think I agree with Ben's approach. There's, I mean, I don't even remember when we got away from the idea of the tax stabilization reserve. And I kind of like that we don't use it anymore, that it, you know. But conceptually, that kind of, right, we could sort of do a both and situation, and we can drop the rate a little bit. But also start to build a cushion in the way that we've historically done.
And we could message that out too. I mean, especially if we don't even have to project forward. Let me say it this way. If we've been bouncing around at this like 7-8% increases, and now we're seeing 14-15, which is essentially 2x that, right? You could imagine a way that we bump into that over 2 years. Oh yeah, Jess, I made conflicted errors. God, that's what happened.
Yeah.
I'm being a little hand wavy without sitting down with actual numbers and so forth, but I think there's conceptually a way we could message that out to people too, to say, we're bringing this back down. We're going to phase this assessment increase in over 2 years, but we're also going to use this as an opportunity because we've been so lean to keep it so tight over the past 5 or 6 years. Now is the time to start kind of putting some in a little bit.
Okay, I mean, I'd like to next year, especially, I would like to not have to use fund balance to balance everything out.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, it's
Right.
been a lot of years that we've had some.
So this year's budget with next year's assessments with no fund balance usage would be a tax rate of 672.
Yeah.
So that additional, call it 50 cents. That additional 50 cents equals about 100,000 in spending, which we very likely could see in payroll increases, EMS and whatnot. So
I mean, right.
So we'll be close one way or the other. We're not likely to see room for a big reduction in rate anyway.
Okay.
We just might not need to touch fund balance, which is its own way of shoring things up for the future.
And that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I think I would still want to see if I don't want to touch fund balance. I think that I'm 100% on board with. If there's wiggle room to say, let's drop to 715 and then back to 725. I don't know, something to kind of be able to show that like we recognize this is quite a jump. I would be in favor of that, but I think you have to balance that with everything else. And I think not touching fund balance has to be kind of top priority, especially if we're going to do what we're proposing here of using a good chunk of it to keep things straight now.
I mean, I think education is also helpful. I mean, if the median home price in the village is around 350 or creeping up to it, then 25-cent change to the rate is $87.50.
You're right.
On the village tax bill side.
Yeah. It's not nothing, but it's also not a lot, right? I think that's the county often does that, is like, what does this change mean to the median home price in the county?
That is how they message, for sure.
And it makes sense with people. Because that's at the end of the day what people care about.
Yeah.
You know? It is. And it's not as bad as you think it is. And it's still not what anyone wants, right? So it's all of those things.
So then for this year, we are okay with using fund balance yet again. We do it most years actually, to try to manage rate. So we'd be using $77,000 of fund balance.
That's a lot.
Last year was
Less than
86.
last year, and less than 2022.
Yeah.
I think when I started, we transitioned that year from putting money into the tax stabilization reserve. I think it was right around when we started, I think, the year before, a year after. So it was
And maybe it'd go back and forth, obviously, I don't know.
Yeah, we had not been
This.
lending money to water
Right,
for the last 4 or 5 years to keep
right.
water bills down. Our general fund balance be a lot more comfortable.
Right. Well, I mean, I think our principles here are still strong, right? We're still budgeting conservatively on. the
And
revenue side,
then we dropped the.
Right, I think we're in good.
No, when we get there, we'll.
Or just-
Let's double check the.
Okay.
You good?
I'm good.
Instead.
All right. I think. We have general more or less put to bed.
Can we double check that we have the same numbers for Jessica since we have conflicted?
What are the creative ideas on the revenue side? They
That's-
make more money.
I feel like that's me. That's EMS, right? It comes down to billing. I think we are actually gonna do that. Is the hope. Right?
I'll check your sheet once you've got it all done, Jess.
One of
Check it
the-
tomorrow.
One of the goals of the RFP for the new billing services that they'll be much more efficient. Like right now for MedX, it's impossible for us to tell if we're billing for the calls that we want. What sort of percent? We have no insight into what they do. So I think once we have it, particularly with Joel as the administrator,
Well, I
be able
could
to
be.
optimize what we do to
I
match
don't
the
mind doing
billings.
that, but I
That'll be
was,
really,
I was in an actual Excel sheet and I thought.
We hope.
We hope.
That.
Well, there's a lot of companies doing really good at making money off healthcare, so.
Yeah.
Seems to be.
not in rural
That and rural.
America.
No, not so much.
So
That's,
7.32.
No, 7.25. Same, same.
All right, I'll just.
Okay. Water. Ben, you want to walk us through?
Oh, boy, sure. We'll see how well I can do this. So starting at the top, metered sales. Oh, Keith saved a version. What's going on? This number is projected from what the new rates we put in place over the past year are anticipated to do. And then being a tad conservative, seeing as we really don't entirely know until we see the actual rates come through. So that's where the 525 comes from, and then the 162.5 underneath. And then unmetered sales, I think, is a continuation of what we typically see. This would be sales for bulk water and other sorts of water, grassroots, I imagine would go under this, that sort of a thing. There is nothing in interest and penalties. I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if we plan on that at all.
It has, yeah.
I guess in the past we've planned for it. Looks like.
Again, not something that was comfortable.
Okay.
waiting on my own.
Let's go with the 5,500. There. Interest in earnings, the reserves.
I'm sorry, where did you put 5,500?
That was for the interest and penalties.
line seven.
Yeah, line 7 based on just what we've seen in the past. Probably could go even a little higher on that if we wanted to. Looks like they've been.
Looks pretty
I
reliably.
still think we're gonna get 2,500 on metered.
Yeah, I think that's bulk water and grassroots, both of which continue to look like they'll be.
It's been over projections.
Yeah, it seems like we're above that most times. Again, that's something we could look to bump a little bit if we wanted to. And then the interest and penalties doesn't have anything in there, but I would be looking at those numbers, comfortable with keeping it at least at the 55. Oh, sorry, that's the one we're talking about. I was gonna skip. Yeah, nothing. Right. Boy, okay, I will try to go in line, right? So that's 55 there, then interest and earnings, skipping, that's just change of whatnot in there. The interest earned on reserves, though, I don't have a good sense of that. It looks like we're doing pretty well above what we projected. Sure.
Reserve balances are also posted for those who make the sheet, the bottom. In the attitude, and you can see the balances.
Oh,
That's what's-
So I'm adding all the balances you want there, right?
Password. Password. Let's see. So the water reserve balance in my class is 537, 978.
Well. Does not, yeah.
4% would be 21,500.
What's the number? Say that number again, fine.
$537,978.09 as of today's close.
It's 150 more than we have here.
So at 4%, currently yielding 5.25, but at 4%, that would be 21.5. $8,525. 21,000 and change at 4%. So we can go anywhere. 20,000 would be conservative. $22,500 or 25 is probably fair, but if you want to keep it conservative, we can put 20,000 in that line.
all right, yeah, let's do 20,000. How do you get to do that in Dropbox? I don't understand.
I'm opening it in the Excel, no, you need to open your view in Excel. Right?
Open it.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Jeff, could you double check the reserves? When you, not now, but just when you have them. to get
Well,
back to the
we're
office.
looking at the reserve, and you're actually, if you look at the water reserve, you know. So that would be real, and yeah, I can double check those.
look at this, real-time
It's
editing.
real in the bank.
Yeah, no, I just mean the list at the bottom is 150 short.
Mhm.
Yeah, so actually, I think I probably misspoke. The unmetered sales, I think, is water sales, and then the miscellaneous, I think it's for hookups for grassroots. So I think we can still plan on 500 there. Or is that
It's
not? It says notes for hookup.
Then you're not having the 235,000 in the water. So there's 235, 13,500, 3,000, 134.
Yeah.
So that's 5,000.
We'll revisit, not important.
But it's not.
So back to unmetered sales, what were you saying, Ben?
No, I think that's right. And then I was just trying to clarify what goes in there. That's just water sold at bulk rate. And then miscellaneous line 14, is that looks like it's hookup fees for primarily for grassroots.
No, not for grassroots.
Oh, water customers?
Yes, typically you can see I've never budgeted before that line, and obviously it's $500.
Okay,
And presumably water was $500.
all right. I wouldn't.
I would
Something in
I don't
here.
know.
Yeah.
Check with Dusty, he said there were no major
Okay.
things that you knew about.
So interest and penalties, these are late fees, we're up to 6,000 year to date,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we could see raising that if we wanted to.
Projects to 7,900.
It seems to that you've done that and you've been about $2,000.
So why don't we just call it 7?
Sure, we can do that.
Interest and earnings are 0 now, reserves is 20. We don't have any planned sales at the moment, right?
No,
So these are placeholders, basically.
yeah, I don't think it's really just these top 5 or 6 here, minus the interest and earnings.
Debt reserve, what's sitting in the debt reserve?
Yeah, so that is at 134, 171, 134,000.
Plan originally was to spend that down. To offset. The to offset the bonds for the water project.
Yeah, now as good a time as any on that.
Just keep it at the 55 from last year.
Sure.
What do you do?
The rate, the F511 line 17.
Debt reserve.
Maybe the 55. And then the rate stabilization,
Does that have anything left in it?
3,271, it looks like it. You had your note says 75 hasn't been moved over, maybe. So there's just. Sorry, so there's 77,000.
I honestly cannot have you all talk at the same time because I cannot hear anything.
I'll let you talk actually, because you probably know more.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm actually now a little lost as to what the 74 feet. I think it meant that we wanted to put that there as a suggestion. Let me check in when you send the. For the value.
That could be an old note, honestly. Because we appropriated 74 last year.
Okay,
I think the idea being we were gonna close that account. Possibly,
Yeah,
whatever's left in there, 3 and change is interest.
I'd bet that.
okay.
I think you can delete the note. We know we spent 74, we allocated 74 out of it.
33.
And you said there was how much left in it that we know of?
The line here says 3,272.
So let's just appropriate that as 3,000 in the revenue side. Still with the intent of closing that. Rate stabilization, now that we've raised rates to where they need to be.
Right, yep.
Okay, then on the expense side. Just go down the list here.
And it's possible there's but you'll find out what's going on there. Maybe we haven't moved the 74 over yet. Potentially.
Right, if you haven't moved the 74, if you show 70 something in that line, then it means we need to move the 74 in the current budget year.
Because we haven't moved anything from reserves anywhere. It's the opposite. Yeah, reserves, there we go. So what is there a question in front of me right now?
Yeah, there should be $0. There should be. Check what the balance is in the ledger for water rate stabilization. If it's 77 and change, that means we need to move 74,000 of it to water general. as the current year budget says we were gonna do. If there's only 3,000 and change, that means we already did it.
And if we haven't moved it, we should double check the debt reserve and see if we move that too.
So we haven't moved it, that is within the command for 74, it needs to move, leaving that 3,000, which is not. Based on,
I'm not sure that that note is accurate, so I would actually check budget, the bank lines.
I have, yeah, I will triple check, because I have the legend of me that shows in which reflects the bank. I will,
So what does the Williamson ledger show?
the 75, then there's 5, which is also then on 60. Fine, I'm gonna leave this an open question, because I'm uncomfortable.
If it's 75 in Williamson and the money hasn't moved, then we need to move that 74 to water general.
Yeah.
And the same thing for the debt reserve. We should be moving 55,000 from debt reserve to water general.
Sounds like we should move that 3,000 back down to 1, just to be safe, I'll just.
What
That's
is
a final answer.
Let's just leave the rate stabilization.
Until we know
Revenue
more.
line is 0.
That seems.
I think on the revenue side.
What do you show? What does Williamson show for the amount in the debt reserve?
F234. Yeah.
Do you show, will Williamson tell you if anything's moved out of that in the current budget year?
It's with an independent. There was an adjustment starting in June for 42,000, which is where we started in January, it has only been changed by, so in Williamson, it hasn't moved out of that. And I can verify bank accounts for loan for the sums.
If you would double check that, that means that 134 is the same number as last year, so we haven't moved 55 out,
So I can check those for us now.
which means we would need to move 55 to water general.
And then also review the 74.
So water general, if nothing's moved, then water general should be $129,000 heavier.
Which also begs the question of our interest earned. That 20K felt conservative. We're about to lose,
Hmm,
129.
that's a good point. Well, plus anything else we appropriate too.
Right, that's true.
Right, well, that money going back into reserves.
Yeah. Maybe we can just highlight.
Any questions on the expense side? It's fairly kind of. There's payroll built in. There's.
I did want to make one comment about, think about engineering. Let me double check my notes. Yeah, so one comment about engineering, I did actually want to put that to 25 instead of 15. The note there is misleading. It's not about pump houses. I was able to connect with MRB, and we are still in the midst of the GIS program as well. And so we have a part budgeted for next year and then the following year to keep improving that system and adding to it. So I think that'll fall primarily underwater. So I think moving that to 25, which I
Which
can
one
do.
is that?
The 20, line 27, 1440.4. So up from 15 to 25. Other than I did it, yes.
Then I have a question on 8320.1. That's source of supply personal.
Yep.
That's showing a drop.
Excel 36,
35.
okay. All right.
Is that just the reallocation of,
And then a staffing railing, bots. So
Were you and
look at,
One fewer body.
Dusty able to connect about a summer help?
yes.
Okay.
So if we look at our GPW, and that's the value. that we have, and then.
Yep.
We see. The size. for water. And he's set.
Oh, and summer wouldn't be any water, right? Because it's gonna be like
Summer isn't
mowing.
any water, so it's a new hire and 2 people in the water. So you're actually missing. You're missing $22,000. There were 2 people allocated in there. Series,
Okay,
right, that were there.
Right.
These 2
Right,
individuals
yes.
are not represented.
oh, I see,
And that's-
okay, got it, yes.
And help my brain, I thought, well, I'm gonna be distracted by a hotel, and I apologize, and through waiting to get checked in. I wanna check to see if money has been transferred beginning June 1st, 2023 to present. From the sewer reserve, the water reserves, correct?
Right, we want to see if anything since June 1st of 23 has come out of water debt reserve specifically. And water rate stabilization reserve
It has not come out of that,
of either one.
correct?
So then we need 74,000 coming out of rate stabilization, which will effectively take it to 0, but we'll have a little left over. And then we need 55,000 coming out of debt reserve. To water general. And you can do that anytime,
Okay,
because that's the current budget year, which we allocated those amounts for.
okay,
To come out of those reserves. To offset expenses in the current year, so those will just
so
go
that will
right,
come out of the 9.
those will come out of night class and go into water general.
Okay,
Sorry to bounce back and forth, but the result on line 35 was adding 22,000. Was that what came out of that?
No, that number is right, that 57,
Oh.
812.
It looks so low because there's 22,000 prior. They, yeah.
Right,
Oh, I see.
we had 2 people in
I
that
see.
line that are no longer in that line
Okay, I thought you were
going
going
forward.
the other direction.
No, yeah.
Okay, okay,
No, that's why we're seeing that
I see.
22,000 difference-ish.
I got you.
And the labor percentage allocation.
Yeah. I don't know, Gordon, if you want to talk about the very bottom line, the F630. Sure. Oh, You mind if I make that a formula?
Oh, please do.
This is basically everything else that's not.
So. The water capital improvement reserve. This is. Actual water infrastructure.
Right.
And the water equipment reserve is. Water truck. Non-water infrastructure needs of the water department.
Yeah, right, truck, backhoe, I think has some, comes out of that. Let me double check my,
It's nice.
yeah. And I actually have that. Hold on, let me double check up.
Also, she replaces that, right? Just.
Yeah. Right, and I have that, yeah, but we put a larger chunk in there last year, and so now we're back down to 10. Actually, I have 10K a year going into that. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and make that 10K.
Okay.
And then I think as we talk about the water, the repaying general line, I'm happy to keep the capital reserve improvement reserve 0 or low, with an eye towards the money that's going to repay general would eventually move back into that line once we're paid up.
What does Williamson have in the water capital improvement reserve? It's at 230. The balance, couple hundred, probably 230, 240.
So it actually has 356, 848, because none of them is, none of the money's, which is why the balance is too smaller than.
But we wouldn't have pulled anything out of there. We haven't spent anything out of it.
356, 848. So, that's
Higher than that.
either water capital improvement and balance that I think it's 5, so not super wary of these numbers. Williamson with June interest added in is 356.
For water
Nothing
cap,
is-
for water capital improvement reserve.
At 230, yeah, nothing's come out of
Nothing should have come out.
there, okay.
Has anything gone in there since June?
There was an adjustment in June for the starting balance to reduce it. To increase it actually by $7 grand and in June just. Is all it's.
So you're gonna need to get with Dwayne to make sure those numbers are right, because there's supposed to be another $74,896 going into it. In this budget year, water general.
Okay, except we didn't transfer, we haven't done, I thought those were the things that happened to April. That are.
Right, but if we don't have that available in water general for some reason.
Okay, so tell me again what it is that you want me to.
What is the actual balance of water capital improvement reserve account? Has anything gone into it this year, which probably hasn't? Which means that the 74,896 that we allocated to contribute to that account in the current budget year has yet to be added to it. So its balance is actually
74,
230.
Yes.
I'm sorry, 430.
right? Let's- okay.
In which case, I'm much more comfortable with not contributing to it this year.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, I think the things coming up near. When I look at the capital improvement plan that MRB's put together for us, the things we're looking at is. Getting into 2030, thinking about replacing some water mains on a regular cadence. So we'll want to start thinking about how we build into that. But again, I think as we pay back. The general fund will be in a place to put a meaningful amount in there on an annual basis that will give us the cushion to be able to attack that problem.
It was the whole point of the capital charge.
Right. Yeah, well, the capital charge, right, is to pay down debt, so we have more free from the actual rates to be able to do these things. And we had this like 5 to 10 year capital plan in place when we sorted out the rates. So this is all kind of the plan slowly coming together.
And we're fully phased in on the water rates, the capital charge currently.
Yes, yep. Yep.
So I am currently looking at the water reserve account and all activity from January 1st, 2023. There was
June 1st.
I'm just looking at the whole year, but so because I am, so I see that on May 30th of 2023, $40,000 was added to the 22-23 adopted budget. And no other sums are in that account except for deposits. Which means the 23-24.
So then I'm gonna need to see. So by mid-April. By mid-April, I'm gonna need to see as much year-to-date water information as you have,
Okay,
so that we can project. The year-end number. We may not move all 74,896,
and then April, only adopting on April.
not for this budget, but by mid-April, I need
Oh.
to see the current year we're in.
Okay,
I need to see the 23-24 water budget
okay,
as current as possible to see. How close we're gonna be to what we projected,
okay,
so that we don't move the 74,896 in May.
do not, okay,
We don't move it if we don't have it,
yeah, okay.
because we've got to get general payback first.
Okay.
On that. Our current revenues exceed our current expenditures as budgeted by 74,800. And 87, which is the downer of that sentence, but it's,
In the current budget year,
you're right, yeah, so completely unrelated and not important at all, just I was staring at that number as we were talking.
no, that's good, because that's gonna come back to general. So just for anyone. Who's not familiar. We delayed raising our water rates. Well beyond. When we should have. Based on our projections from 2013, when we took on the second water source project. And in so doing. We were lending from the regular budget's general fund to the water general fund to cover certain expenses, which have accrued over time. So that will begin, well, hopefully this in the current budget year, we'll begin repaying that. And the water budget will now reflect a line to repay the general fund until the general fund is paid back.
Yeah, and so I just, in the treasurer's budget, I just made that a line, basically the revenues minus all of our expenditures and what's left over, which. I
I
don't
have
know,
a different number. Oh.
We just have to.
Yeah, didn't we want 15,000 in the water equipment reserve?
I have my spreadsheet for our reserve at 10. We put 50 in last year. Which also looks like is probably not in the balance, right? That's budgeted.
That's fine.
But assuming that 50 gets moved in, so maybe another thing to look at while you're looking at reserves. If that 50 gets moved in, then we're in a good spot to put in 10 every year.
So then theory, so this is good. So this April, Jess will have a very close to, I mean, you won't have March closed, but you might have February closed.
I
We-
would definitely, if I could have.
You could have March for water closed, not maybe the general.
Yeah,
So if we close March water by mid-April, we can see where we are year to date.
okay,
We could potentially have a decent chunk paid back to general this cycle, this budget year, about 70 some. And then if that 192 holds up, we can have general fully paid back. In the 25-26 budget year.
that'd be amazing.
Mhm. And then we can take away that robbing Peter to pay Paul line.
It's borrowing.
Sorry,
Well, that's now,
sorry, that was harsh.
now we're paying Peter back.
Peter gets reimbursed.
Yes.
I think that's what's happening.
Okay. Sewer.
All right. So again. Top lines, rents and capital charge, those are the new, reflective of the new. Rates that are in play. The capital charge is still increasing, will increase partway through this year, so this is. Most of, but not all of the eventual capital charge. We'll see the full amount in the next budget year. Going through here below on things we haven't entered in, we could put maybe around 5 in for penalties. Looks like that
That's right.
seems about right. And then we'll look for those reserve numbers again.
So let me verify.
Sure.
Because I think we haven't moved.
Yeah, well, I think this may be a broader secondary conversation somewhat of just what is. I know at one point we switched our process to being putting reserves. Moving reserves at the end of the budget year.
Yeah.
Instead of the beginning. I don't really have an opinion either which way, as long as we know which way the way is.
Well,
But
the
that's-
reason, for sure, the reason we moved it to last minute was because we knew we were running thin. Hence the borrowing from water.
Right.
And it didn't matter because we weren't earning any interest. It probably makes more sense now with good interest rates to not wait.
Yeah,
As
to
long as
move,
the cash is available.
right. Move money in, but maybe not out. If we're doing these like pay ourselves out from I don't have an opinion really about like where we're gonna appropriate funds.
Yeah.
We could conceivably wait on those, but I don't,
So the only thing, since. So we're looking for money out of the reserves and into, or the sewer reserves and into sewer checking, correct? In like substantial amounts.
yeah, we had 65,000 in the last budget from the rate stabilization reserve into general with the water
In,
balance.
into general.
And just
Sorry,
sewer
water,
checking.
sewer
Sewer
checking, yes, thank you for the right terms.
I doubt it.
That's it.
So that's gotta come into sewer checking.
Yep,
Okay.
and that would be out of G 231.
Are we waiting though? Or it depends on. Should have a recap, I'll tell you, we'll figure out our own. numbers.
Yeah, we'll sit down and decide what to move.
Okay,
Stuff coming out of reserves into sewer checking or water checking probably is gonna be pretty soon.
okay,
Once that comes out, there'll be 421,000 in the reserve account total at 9 class times 4% is gonna be 17,000. We could put in that reserve line,
All right,
unless we want to be more conservative and call it 15.
no, 4% seems quite conservative enough.
What's it?
8,
What was the number?
17,000. And what does Williamson show as the current balance in the sewer rate stabilization reserve?
that's G 231.
Switching.
Last year I didn't know if there was about 65 there, so I think we were gonna flatten there.
I think that was the idea too.
30 reserve for others.
231, sorry. Just rate stabilization. Yeah.
66, 680.
So that was what we were gonna flatten plus interest. Okay. No appropriates here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's zeroed out. Yeah, so any more questions on revenue? All right, we can look at expenses. Oh, there are updated numbers from Dusty on some of this. So. Let's see. I have a number beyond what's in here for the engineer line 1440.4. Sure. I don't have anything specific for sewer engineering. But I did want to leave it with something in there. So I was thinking the 5,000 that we've had just to continue that forward. Everything else that's going on right now. Actually, that's not, there's a possibility that some GIS work could get done that would come out of sewer. The GIS work is a little up in the air. We're probably going to go off script from exactly what we've contracted, and we'll just see how much we can kind of get through in the current budget that we have, but that would be helpful there. And then for the sewer contractual line 28, Dusty has 90,000 for pump rebuild, filter socks, replacement blower, manhole linings. Is what he is calculated there. What I don't,
Line again?
that was line 28, 8130.4. That is a bit less than what we've used year to date, but this is in consultation with our sewer operators.
Isn't.
What was that for, did you
Whereas-
say?
So that, yeah, no, actually, this might be a question. Pump rebuild, filter socks, replacement blower, manhole lining.
But didn't we?
Is
do
this
the-
where our
didn't we do the pump?
Yeah, that's.
We did the pump.
Yeah, we did do those.
Manhole line.
I think that's. Second.
Actually, sorry, that's gonna be no repair reserve potential cement main line, is that?
Hold on. Trying to recall it. Dusty had put 40,000 in the collection system repair reserve for manhole linings, but the idea is that we're actually just going to do that this year. So I had, I had suggested moving that up, which actually would then make that 130,000. But I guess my question that I'm unclear about. Do you have a sense of what goes in that contractual line? Does that include our like? I don't think it is just, I want to make sure Dusty is thinking of all the things that go into that line. I don't think it is just repairs and equipment. I don't know where our contract with,
So our company.
With Camden.
In, um. G 8131.4, which is roughly that $94,000,
Then what's in,
but we moved it because it can be promoted.
what's in G 8130.4?
Right, that's the suggestion, that it doesn't need to be split out.
So to me, this is one of the conversations.
Oh, this is it.
Aren't you though?
Stick around for sewer, huh?
Yeah, it looks like we just lost the line.
yeah, so do we have a contract number for Camden?
Contract with Camden should be 100% separate from other contractual limits for sewer. So that,
Oh, okay.
whichever one was in 8131.4,
Out of curiosity, why do you want to track that separately?
because we might want to use someone else for that. We might bid
That
it.
service.
So we could search them by vendor instead of.
I would like to keep them separate. I would like all the spending for the sewer plant that has the potential to have its own contracts with different vendors on an ongoing basis. They should be kept separate.
Okay. So then that is, right, so that's it was budgeted for 93.6.
So then what was in 8130.4 that was budgeted for 85?
That's the manual lighting. But then maybe.
No, I think the 90 is. I may have to come back around to some of this. Because this is now. I've lost the thread here. I talked with Dusty about moving that 40 out of the reserve into an actual line. What I think needs to happen is we need to have a line for Camden. And we have a line for work that we anticipate, larger purchases that we anticipate over the next year, which I have an email on that.
Wouldn't that just be a WWTP repairs? Or repairs and improvements? Not technically a contractual line if we're spending.
Yeah, it's possible that we don't have the right lines here. Is there one are you suggesting one that we have, or are you thinking we're missing a line?
We may need to create a line if he's looking to spend 40.
Yeah, so we need something going forward for manhole covers, manhole lining, like line potentially, or I don't know where that comes from. And then there's also what needs to be repaired ongoing at the sewer plant itself, which I'm trying to find the actual email there. So we did just do some of the, okay, so I think that note is actually correct. The pump rebuild kits, filter socks and replacement blower. We did just let's see.
Trying to Camden cost, I don't have the contract.
That sounds awfully familiar to me that they
It
came.
does.
Yeah, because remember when our pump went and the two of them came here and gave the
Right.
presentation and said, we need this money now for X, X and X.
Right.
In fairness,
And
wasn't the
one-
discussion that there's 3 pumps and 2 of them were broken and one of them was immediately broken and the other one.
One was
waiting?
on its way to broke. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that was it. Yeah.
Does that mean it could be that?
So the Camden contractual line, do you want that to be only their operational things and nothing else that Camden can supply, right? So you just want to see what their operation.
So like
What-
not that repair.
Whatever Camden's, whatever our contract with them to run the sewer plant is,
General.
should have this.
All right, I'm gonna follow up on the question of, man, these sound familiar.
A good subject line for an email.
Right,
So if you want to talk about Camden contractual amounts, I can tell you that their contracted monthly amount went up. From like 700-800, and I don't know why this would be to 8,268, so if it continued at 8,268 monthly for 12 months, that'd be 99,000.
okay.
Do they have an escalation clause in their contract or would they just do that?
I am not familiar with it.
Yeah, and I'm also questioning on their contract. Included in that contract, is there a preventative maintenance program in that contract?
That,
The last contract I have from them is from 2017, and I will admit to having not sat down with it recently.
Yeah,
We do seem to have a I hear good things from Dusty. But that does not mean that we shouldn't
yeah.
consider other things or look a little deeper at this.
I'm just wondering, like, within that part of the contract. I'd like to know what they're doing to prevent. A breakdown, mechanical breakdowns. Do they have a?
Well, I mean, they are giving, like, talking with us about equipment that we need to buy, repairs we need to make. I don't know as if they cover those things because that would be above and beyond. Their contract is more for operations, but they're doing preventative
Okay.
maintenance.
yeah,
so
they do
forth.
preventative maintenance.
Right.
I
They're cleaning things.
Even when we
and-
switched, that was a big part of it.
Right.
If memory serves.
But when you've got, right, a pump that fails or
Right, okay,
equipment that needs replacing on a semi-annual basis or something, those things.
But they are doing things like changing.
Right.
Last.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Do you want to put a 99,000 for the Camden contractual? Or 8,300? Which would be that 8,268 times 12 months.
no, I'm thinking at this point, so you want to clear up a couple things with Dusty?
Yeah, I would like to make sure I have a clear run of that though, so. The things I would be looking at are. Why is the 90K, what's in the 90K? That's on line 28.
So I'm just thinking in the interest of time, if Jess and I mean, we're basically done with general, basically done with water. Jess and I will work on the water reserves and what has or hasn't moved. And then in April, we'll get a year to date, so we'll know what's available to move back to general. And then if the two of you and Dusty want to clean this up. Then we can, if we don't have a huge agenda, we can. Finish it up next Monday night.
Okay.
We do have a budget meeting scheduled for next Wednesday. But if this is the only thing that's left and we can get it done next Monday, then we don't need the Wednesday meeting.
Yeah. Do you think we'll know before then? I will need to procure childcare if we have to have that Wednesday meeting? Should I plan on that or not? Or do you?
I think that depends on what we do with the sewer budget on Monday.
Okay.
So as a reminder, unfortunately, I will be gone. Well, I might be able to land.
Unless there's anything, unless there's anything you really want to weigh in on
That would be
the
helpful.
sewer budget.
I would
No,
like
no,
to think.
but I'm gonna have that conversation with Guy as well. I don't miss that, right?
Because it-
That to be hanging as
At
well.
least helps me think about.
I will see what comes of that conversation and I'll send out an email. If it's like decisive and easy, that's just
Okay.
what we'll aim for.
Right.
And if it's not,
Mhm.
no,
Right.
then we can do whatever.
So does that sound okay?
Yeah, and so,
Leave up the sewer budget.
yep, and actually those numbers aren't too terribly far apart now that just put the 99 in. You can actually, we're like 3,000 away from revenue.
Right.
Which is about right, and then we'll see capital charge increase a little bit. I'll play around with it. I think we're hopefully in a good spot, and I'll connect with Dusty on getting the rest of this all sorted.
And can I actually ask a question about water on line 48, the Sierra bond? Principal of interest. So I have the schedule in front of me. From Green Bank for what we pay, and so that it spans a funny time frame, right? So we pay April in 2023 and then October. It's like, but I can't figure out why I was budgeted for $155,000. It's making me feel like I'm in past years.
We're
Because
talking,
it's definitely, so here we have these lines.
you're looking at water.
Yeah, water.
Okay.
So if I look at here, right, in October of 2024, which is this next year, we have an interest payment of 7,200 and get a principal payment of 75. And then in April of 2025, which is the same budget year, we just had interest. So why historically have we budgeted?
No, but you do two bonds. So
There's a
there should be two bonds getting paid off each year.
There's a sewer bond and there's a water bond. Sewer bond's 143.
There should be two historically, I believe. The reason why you're seeing previous years 152, 155 is because there's. You would never have a bond interest only payment. There would be a bond getting paid off.
Have the schedule for the meeting that I verified with them. There's a payment of it's just interest. And then the principal payment, or rather, April is just interest, and then October we pay interest and principal. So,
Look back at the ledger and see what happened in 2022.
yeah, but. Yeah, but I can't figure out where that payment schedule is, and I called municipal. And I called municipal solutions.
No, but can you see where the payments actually went? Like who they were made to in 2022? Because it shows in the actual line too.
Oh, yeah, but it's to them, but then it's gone. How can I verify what bonds? It's strange.
Municipal Solutions will have a record from when we closed on the water project. I might even have a copy somewhere.
Okay. 'Cause it did
Does it say,
call
let me see the she said schedule.
We verified, it's simply the new one, and then but I wanna do it again, unless someone remembers that we came one off last year.
I hope so, because otherwise our water budget looks very different. Very abrupt.
So. Oranges. M&T Bank for 77. So we have a bond with M&T Bank.
There's another financier. So there were three. You're gonna have to get someone at Municipal Solutions to return your call, because there were three water bonds at one point. This is the refinance of the 2007. This is for the water tank.
Yeah. But there's another one. For water.
We've got a huge bond for the water source. That was 5.25 million, and we only got 3 and change of it in grant money. So there's 1.5 million to 2 out there. That will also be a serial bond paying down annually. Right, because this was a 30-year bond, originally a 30-year bond. Water tower was completed 0405-ish. If I recall.
Yeah, we did some words, I would say, yes, 05, I would think.
So yeah, somewhere there, 0405.
Yeah.
Because this pays off in 2034, so it was a 30-year cycle. So this is just for the water tower.
But there should be a big bond for the water source.
Yes.
Yes.
For sure. And I think there might have been a separate bond for a big water main on Main Street that we just paid off a year or two ago. The 2018-19 water budget had 207,000 in principal payments. And that dropped to 180 and then 135. Then bumped back up to 150. So this is just one of at least 2, possibly 3.
Means that when we revisit the water budget,
There could be an.
it's gonna hurt in a new way.
Okay, so let's check on that. So hopefully we'll be able to finish up water and sewer on Monday. Okay, anything else tonight, budget related?
I just, for me, thinking through the sewer, do we know the difference between the sewer reserve and the collection system repair reserve?
Yes, they have different purposes. That's one of the better. It's not what you can send out.
Is that like plant versus collection?
Bless you, I think one is meant to be everything in the sewer system outside of the plant.
Okay.
And the other is plant generally,
That makes,
but it would be, actually Matt might have a better
okay.
handle of the actual distinction.
And then when you're trying to balance a budget, where do you like to put the dollars and cents into a reserve line? That a good enough place as any. I mean, I'm gonna end up with, 34 and change or something to make the two numbers even out. I'm thinking of putting that into a collection reserve, because we need to start thinking about lining pipe. Yeah, okay. I will sort out the last bits of this. I mean, basically, it's trying to understand more of, because Dusty just put it in here today, was getting the actual contractual number in, and I didn't get to fully get his understanding. You had said something about making a new line for like manhole replacement and slip lining. Is that
I
something?
don't actually know why we wouldn't spend it up.
Okay,
Just have to get it to the reserve.
we can do that too. I'm either way. I guess my thought was, if it's like the manhole thing, for instance, I'm thinking of it's like it's an annual year thing. Like every year we're doing 2 or 3 of these things.
Then I would just add a line for manhole repair.
Okay,
If it's gonna be a recurring spend, that you don't wanna drag it out of a reserve
yep. And do I?
for timing's sake.
All right.
And then what that's gotta be, or what the G line number has to be is probably a Williams thing.
Okay. I'll probably make up a line and I'll get to it with you as soon as I get with Dusty. We'll probably end up wanting. Yeah, why don't we try and do that? And we can. Yeah, Dusty's at training today or tomorrow. So it's
Right.
right. So I was tempted to try not to bother him tomorrow, but get a hold of him maybe Wednesday. And me and him can do a chat about breaking out so create a new line for Camden, which we have, right? And then new line for manhole repair. Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. And so we'll need to figure out. I don't know. I have no what is the right name is. If it doesn't really matter, sure. Why not? It's not, I mean, it's not, the only difference is not about the wastewater treatment plant, it's about the pollution. I don't know if that makes a difference. And then we need the best guess at the contractual. Or what the new contractual line should be.
Okay, anything else tonight on budget? Stop sharing.
We go executive session to discuss.
DPW personnel issue? Or hiring for DPW?
That's what I meant to say.
Friendly amendment.
That was a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.